My father was a Satan worshiper. As a child, I didn't understand what it meant. It just sounded evil and very terrifying. My father went from being a Satan worshiper to being a Christian, and he started using religion as a weapon. This is my father, and he's got that look on his face that he's really important. Like he's a prophet of God. He said, the whole family goes through me. You can't even get to God unless you go through me. For us, we saw him as a God, and he told me, if you go against anything I say, you'll be condemned to hell forever. I was completely trapped. There was no way out of it. Even if I thought about escaping, there was no escape because I knew I couldn't escape God. My father was Robert Hale, but then he changed his name to Papa Pilgrim. He told us that we're to call him Papa because that's what Jesus Christ called his father. I'm the oldest of 15 brothers and sisters. I have 9 brothers and 5 sisters. My father decided that we were like a Noah family. He called us the Ark. We grew up off the land, and I knew nothing of the world. I didn't go to school. We didn't read books. All I knew was what my father taught me. I grew up hearing anything beyond our mountain was the city of destruction. And I believed what my father told me. I believed everything he said. Oh my goodness, yeah. That's my dolly, Betty. I would have been 5 in that picture. My father told me that I was worshiping my doll. She was an idol. He just said it was the devil. And it was such an awful feeling, though, feeling like, oh my word, I'm worshiping the devil? My doll? The devil? One morning, my father was reading his Bible, and he just called out to all of his children to come here. I got to tell you something really exciting that God has revealed to me.
Gather around.
He opened up his Bible, and he started reading scriptures. And he says that our dolls and our toys and anything that we have that we love or like have become an idol.
What does that mean?
That we needed to get rid of them. But I didn't understand exactly what my father meant.
Go get your toys.
All of them?
Yes, all of them!
He said, go get your doll right now. Go get it. He had my brother get his little teddy bear, and he laid it right there in the middle of everybody, and he said, that is an idol. It's a wicked, it's from the devil. They're graven images. And so you're worshiping the devil. This here is not going to stand between you and God anymore.
Stephanie, go get a sack from the barn.
He sent my sister to the barn to get a feed sack and had us put everything in that bag. He said, you have to make this stand yourself. You have to be the one to put this in there because you're gonna purify yourself by doing this. He made me throw it down, and I watched it just tumble down. I was just crying inside and feeling so evil for feeling that way. Like, I didn't want my father to know that I actually felt really sad. We had like one big chair. It was my papa's chair, and that's where he sat.
Good morning, children.
Good morning.
When we got up in the morning, the first thing we were to do was sit at Papa's feet and listen to the Bible.
In the midst of a crooked and perverse nation,
He would sit us around him for hours and hours and preached to us from the King James Bible.
God rewards us with his abundance.
And we weren't allowed to eat because he said the Bible makes it really clear that you're supposed to feed your animals before you eat. So we weren't allowed to eat until the chores were done. But he got to eat because he was doing his chores already. He was preaching at us and telling us the Bible, and he was doing his job. So we'd watch him eat like eggs and cooked up meat. My mouth would even water, like just the desire to get one little bite of that food. He feasted like a king while we were starving.
Okay, children, let's go out and do our chores.
It would be noon sometimes before we were sent outside. The sheep had to be taken out on the mountain. The cows had to be milked. It was always late and very dark at night by the time we finished our chores. We were famished. We would be still waiting for something to eat. And then when we ate, we weren't allowed to take a bite until he had taken the first bite. Sometimes my siblings would fall asleep, and I was so scared that they would just sleep all night and not get to eat dinner.
Let's pray.
And I'd try to wake them up and just try to get them to stay awake because I didn't want them to go to night without food, which just always makes my heart hurt when I see my siblings suffer. And I always took it on as when they suffered that it was my fault. So I really took on that blame throughout my life.
And please bless all of us.
When I look back at it, I just see how cruel it was for my father to control us, not only with food, but like with God. When I was really young, we only had a couple animals. One of them was our big dog we called Mountain. And for us kids, you know, he was kind of like our donkey, our everything. He just always liked to stay with us, and he would follow us. He was really our only friend. One day, I was helping my papa take care of the chickens and whatnot, and then we came home, and my father said, I want you to come with me. And he ordered me to hold a knife in my hand and a rope. He said, just come with me. And we stopped by this big tree. And there was Mountain just laying there, but he was stiff and he was hard. And I realized that Mountain was dead.
Give me the blade.
And then he demanded that I hand him the knife, and I handed him the knife, really scared what he was gonna do.
Now, you wait right here and you watch.
And I stood there in shock as Papa started to skin the dog. And I'm thinking, wait, you know, this is Mountain. I didn't even think of Mountain as like a dog. I mean, he was a part of the family. And I'm trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? I thought I did something wrong because he's angry at me. That's what I was thinking. I'm just standing there, scared to death to even cry. Afraid to make a move. He used that as an opportunity to, once again, take something that I love. And I thought, man, I better never, ever disobey Papa, because if I do, I'm gonna get skinned out like Mountain did. And then he was just flung over the back of his shoulder and dripping blood down the back of my dad. And then when we got to the cabin, he spread the hide out and it just dried stiff and hard. When it was all dried and hard, he put Mountain's hide on the ground like it was a rug. It just seems like he put it right in my pathway where I would be reminded of his death. It wasn't long after Mountain's hide was put in the attic, I had got in trouble for something. My father decided to punish me. He had me go lay in the attic on top of Mountain's hide. It was at least a week on his hard hide. I was reminded every day that my father was powerful and scary. He said, you just need to be thankful that you're alive. The message I got from it was, you don't disobey, because it might cost my life. For my siblings and I, and my mother, my father was the rule, the absolute authority of the house, and he ruled us with the iron fist. He had so much power, and we would all experience being tortured. One day, Papa gathered us all around.
Okay.
And he said, I got another revelation from God. God destroyed the whole entire world over the imagination and the wickedness of their heart. And I realized that my own children are walking in those footsteps.
You are making things up and not in the real world.
You're no longer allowed to pretend or imagine.
It can't be the way you wish it to be.
I didn't understand exactly what my father meant. So a few days later, I was playing, pretending to be a chicken, and my father said, I want you to go get me a willow. And I just questioned him. I'm like, what did I do wrong? He said, don't you talk to me like that. You know what you did wrong.
Hurry up.
So I run and get 2 willow sticks, and I come back, and he opened up the Bible, and he went to the scriptures where it says in Proverbs something about beating them with a wrought iron and don't spare for their crying. And he is walking into God's obedience, obeying God's word.
So a man sharpeth the countenance of his friend.
And he whips me, and he didn't call spanking or whippings, he called them correction. But what he called correction was full-on abuse.
A stone is heavy.
Every single time he beat me, whipped me, I was supposed to say, thank you. Thank you, Papa, for correcting me. And he told me over and over again, you need to be praising God that you have a father like me willing to beat the devil out of you. He was beating my brothers, my mother, and he said that everybody was wicked and defiled.
Go to the house and get cleaned up.
I and my siblings lived in fear for anything to go wrong. And sometimes that cow would kick that bucket over, and we'd come home carrying that empty bucket, crying because we knew what we had coming. He is doing all his preaching for hours. And if we fell asleep, or if we couldn't answer his question, repeat what he told us, then he was knock us over the head. There's something about hearing screams and cries. I just didn't know if it was gonna be their last. I just had nightmares after nightmares that someone was gonna die. I got the message that pain was love, that I had to earn my way to heaven by suffering. And I need to do exactly what Papa said if I'm gonna make it to heaven. Papa really liked baths. He spent a lot of time in the bathtub. I'm talking about like hours. He would have me come get in the tub with him more and more as I got older. I remember the time when I was standing in the house and Papa was in the tub and he wanted me to come get in the tub with him.
Alicia!
Growing into a young lady, you know, I'm getting breast. I'm starting to grow up. I'm really feeling conscious of myself. I was taking as long as I could to go. And he yelled, I want you to come over here and I want you to cuddle up with me. You're my girl. I want you to be here beside me. I need you. Gives me the chills to even think about it. He says, what's taking so long? I'm like, I'm getting ready. I was really just taking a really long time because I didn't want to go. He said, no, you're not. What's taking so long? It's almost like he had eyes that could see through the wall.
Come out here now. I'm serious.
I just was scared. I was terrified to tell him no. But there was no choice. There was no way out. I had to do what Papa said. I believed I was evil for even wanting to be away from my father. So I got in the tub with him. He'd have me lay on him, and he would just press me up against him, up into his chest. And he had one hand down on himself, touching his private parts. And my mind went far, far away. I disassociated. I wasn't there. I was being completely brainwashed to believe that I was supposed to be there for my father when really I should have got away. It was wicked. It was totally wicked what my father was doing. It gives me the chills even thinking about it. He said, "You were created by God just for me." He talked about when I was in the bathtub with him, and he described even over the years, me cuddling up beside him. He started like revealing to me all these times that he had sexually abused me.
The nights we've been spending together,
He didn't use those words,
I'm very, very fond of them.
but I can't even tell you how violated I was in that moment. And my father demanded that I go to bed with just my robe on and to wait for him there. I fell asleep, shaking, and just woke up. My dad was on top of me and molesting me over and over and over again. I couldn't stop myself from begging him, "Please, can you please not do this? Like, I'm not your wife." He just said, "You need to know one thing, that if you walk away from me, you're walking away from God and the Holy Spirit, because he speaks through me, and he has spoke to me that this is what you're supposed to be for me. If you even say it's evil, you can't ever be forgiven." I always call that night just the darkest, the most shameful day of my life. Down inside, I felt so evil, and a lot of people don't understand, why didn't I get away? Like, what kept you there? And the only thing I can say is that it was just like so terrifying to go against God. And that if I left, the threats that he gave me for how the family was going to be treated was even worse. There was no way out of it. My father assaulted me every day, every night. I felt so exposed. I felt trapped and humiliated. I actually felt like my own body had failed me. That's what it felt. It's a little shocking. But when I see that picture, oh my goodness, I see a pretty hurting soul. I would tell that girl, you deserve to be taken care of. You deserve to be loved on. You deserve every time to hurt, to have mama put a Band-Aid on it and say she loves you. You deserved a dad that would do anything to protect you and keep you from harm. Didn't even feel like living. I just wanted to die so bad. I considered suicide many, many times, but I was so scared to death of hell. One day, I snuck out of camp. I was freezing. Everything was freezing over, and I just headed off through the snow, through the mountains and through the snow. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. I couldn't feel my hands. I just kept going as hard as I could go to get as far out away as I could. I was thinking my time was running out because I was freezing, and I would just find somewhere to curl up and die. But my brothers, they tracked me down, and I just remember them walking up. They were so angry with me. They felt like it was wrong to run away. I learned that day that running away didn't work either, and I was just stuck. I felt like it was just going to be my life forever, unless I died. We lived way out in the Wrangell Mountains. And when we went to town, we drove a couple 100 miles towards Anchorage, Alaska. I think my father knew that he needed something more isolated. He knew the world was creeping in, and he wasn't going to be able to hide his ways of living for very long. It got to the point where my father wouldn't even let me out of sight. I literally was like on a chain. And when I was in the vehicle with him, he would lock the doors to keep me from getting out. And I started challenging my father. I just said, I just don't understand how God is okay with what you do to me.
Jesus Christ doesn't support your actions. You're a sinner.
How dare you say that to me?
Of course, that was the last thing I should have ever said to my father.
You're wrong.
You blasphemous sinner.
He had pulled his belt out, and I quickly tried to beg his forgiveness for doing that. At that point, he just knocked me out again and again. And it just lasted late into the night, where my father was just like beating me and beating me. The next morning, I woke up, pulled myself up. I could hardly see because my eyes were like bulging out and I couldn't even hardly see through my eyes. And my father said, "You put that ski mask on. I don't want you to be seen like that."
Cover yourself up.
He said, "What are you going to tell the family? What are you going to tell them?" And I said, that I deserve what I get. You're going to tell them that you were disobedient and that you were punished. And I said, I promise I'll tell them that.
All right, let's go.
Not long after, Mom and my brothers all came out. And my brother said, "Take it off, I want to see it. I want to see your face." And I took off the ski mask. I guess they said the words that I'd always longed to hear. And I was like, this can't be happening.
He can't keep doing this.
This is not right. We've been worried about you. At that point, my father's actions were just getting so violent. I knew that he was getting really close to killing somebody. It's kind of like you can smell death in the air, and I could smell it. A couple of days went by, and we were all in the kitchen one morning, gathered around. I remember my father was sitting in the chair, and I was right beside him on the floor. And my brothers stepped up and started challenging my father for why I looked so beat up and what he had done to me.
You will not touch her again.
Don't you talk to me like that.
My father gets up, and he walks over to my brothers. One of my brothers said, "You are the biggest liar in the world I have ever met." My father knocked him over, broke his nose, and kicked my other brother out of the house.
Get out of this house! Don't you come back!
That night, my brothers left, and they didn't return. Their eyes felt completely frozen. I felt like I couldn't leave, because if I left, Papa would hurt the rest of the family. And there was my little sisters and my little brothers, and there was my mom. It felt like hell on earth staying and potential death leaving. I was in the presence of evil all 29 years of my life. The more I challenged my father and resisted, the worse his evil vision got.
Let's pray.
So he sat my mother and me down and said, now his number one prayer was that I would fully accept him and reach a point where I would be as willing to even start bearing his kids. I remember my mom with a really disgusted look. I just looked down and stared. I was frozen. And he used the Bible to explain to me that God wanted me to have his child. I didn't know how to read. I could barely read the Bible. But bearing my father's child was too much. It went past the limit. I had to get away. I knew that I had to escape, even if I died trying. Yeah, so this is me on my snow machine. And these are the mountains that we lived in that were surrounding us. You couldn't get out in the winter. You actually couldn't even drive your snow machine over them. They were so steep. So we had to go down the narrow valley, very steep, and go down the trail that we made over the river. It was so scary choosing to escape. I really wasn't sure in my mind if I was even doing the right thing. What if I was going against God? Mostly I was really afraid of my father finding out and catching me. I was scared to death. But staying would have been accepting hell on earth for the rest of my life. And yet escaping felt like probably a death. So it was kind of now or never, even if I died trying. One evening, I heard my father say that he was going to go into the village, 14 miles down our valley. He was gonna go get some more gas for our generator. He was gonna leave the next morning, and I just realized that that was my escape. That was my moment. And the next day, as soon as I could hear a snow machine out of sight, I ran in the house. I wrote this note that said, I'm gonna go off into the wilderness and pray for a while.
Where are you going? I'm leaving.
And one of my sisters, she told me she was coming with me. She had a plan with my brothers and my mother to try to get me down into the village and meet up with them. And when I heard that, I felt loved. I felt like, oh my goodness, they're gonna take care of me.
But we don't have much time. We have to go quickly.
I know how to survive in the wilderness. I grabbed things out of the pantry. I found something to start a fire with, and I got a little salt for salting wood and sleeping bags, warm clothes. I got a bag of rice and some food out of the pantry. My father was going down in the village, getting the fuel and turning around and coming right straight back. So I had limited amount of time.
You got everything?
I do.
Threw it all in a duffel bag, put it on the back of the snow machine, and we headed off the hill. And it felt really good to have my mother's support. I cried because I just felt like it'd be the last time I would see my mother and my siblings. And there was only one trail. And so he was going to turn around and come right straight back. So we were both on the same trail. And we got off that hill and down on the riverbed. And we put our snow machine up against the bank. We had brought these white sheets so that we could blend into the snow and be in camouflage. We had two of them, one for the snow machine and one for us. And we just really quickly got out, grabbed the white sheets and covered up and sat real quietly. And about 10, 15 minutes went by. And we were looking through the trees, and then there was my father. And we could just watch him right through the trees. And my father did eventually go home. Once he passed, there was this feeling that I was free. But I knew within moments he was going to find that I was gone. And we threw everything onto that snow machine and took off. I said, okay, let's go. And we're not stopping. We're not going to get off of this snow machine. And still, I'm wondering if I'm doing the wrong thing the whole entire time. I'm like, I might be literally walking into hell right now. It was about 20 below zero at night. And we just crawled into our sleeping bags. And I could hear my father. I could hear his snow machine zooming all over the place. We were supposed to rendezvous with my brothers, but my sister had just got the rendezvous messed up. We stayed there for 5 days. And the whole time, my brothers had been trying to find us. Finally, we were able to get in touch with my brothers, and we told them exactly where we were, and we made a rendezvous plan when they would come in and when they would meet us. The sight of that vehicle pulling over and just crawling in that vehicle with my brothers, it was just like a little piece of heaven on earth, I guess. Felt that way. My brothers took me down to the police station, and I remember walking into this really small square room and was scared to death to be alone with any guy, anybody. And I just sat down in front of this police officer.
He would pull me close.
And I like literally dumped my entire life. I have no idea how many hours went by. It all came out that he was evil and what he did was evil for what he's done to me and for what he's done to his family. But I was really surprised in myself. Like, I have a freedom right now that I have never felt. Like it was like over with. And then we walked out of there. I had no idea what was going to happen next. I got a call and they asked that I come in and talk to the grand jury. The DA sat me on this chair. I think there was like 17, 18 people in this room, men and women. As humiliating as it was to be telling these secrets about my life, it was like, for the first time ever, I had a voice. I was being heard. It was a shocking moment when I looked up and I realized that, I think everybody in that room was crying. I realized that people actually cared about me. It was all over the news about Papa Pilgrim. He was one of the most wanted men in Alaska at that time. I was terrified they wouldn't find him. I was just terrified that he would find us and that we'd all end up back into that hell again. It had gotten out all over the world, and people were all waiting for Papa Pilgrim to get caught. Every time I saw a police officer, every time I heard anything, I was just like, they're looking for my father. They were everywhere looking for him. And so when I got word that they had found him, I can't even express the feeling. It was like, finally, I didn't have to worry anymore. I didn't see my father. I didn't lay eyes on my father till a couple years later when he was sentenced. I wanted to face my father. I wanted to look him in the eyes, and I wanted to tell him that I forgave him and that I wanted to move on. I had done a lot of schooling and learning how to write and read, and I typed out a 9-page letter to bring to my father. We were all sitting there, and when he came through the door, he was in handcuffs. I just saw such a defeated, withered up man. And I think for that moment, I was like, how did that man hurt me like he did? I just remember walking up to the witness stand. I still had all this expectation that he would at least say he was sorry and admit he did wrong. And I looked up at my father, and he was just staring at me with that look like, how dare you?
You carefully made up signs and visions which you used on me whenever I would show the least bit of resistance to your physical advances.
And it was really empowering. I can't even express the power it felt, or the freedom and the moment of openly telling my father what he had done and that it was wrong without him shutting me down and beating me up.
I'm glad now that I can stand and speak with confidence that all those visions were lies.
It was just silent after I spoke, and then it was my father's turn. It was devastating to hear my father not admit that he was guilty on telling me that I was wicked. But that judge spoke up for me and for my family and did not believe my father. He made it really clear that not only were all my words true, but it was a lot worse than I could even make it. It was like there was a moment of hell, and then there was a moment of heaven. I felt like God was speaking, and justice had spoke. The last time I saw my father was when they wheeled him out in that wheelchair in handcuffs. He just gave me that last look of, "You're the most unfaithful person." Then I heard that he was in the hospital and that he was dying of liver failure. And one of my brothers told me later that he had really spent time with our father trying to encourage him to repent, and he would not. He just said that he was a godly man. He was righteous, and he had done everything before God right. So I asked God one night, I was like, "Okay, God, if I'm supposed to go see my father, will you please make that happen?" The next morning, I got a call. My brother said, "My father just died." I felt so loved by God at that moment. Like, there was just like this huge freedom that hit me. Like, I knew I wasn't supposed to see him. I knew that. I just knelt there on that grave and found out how free I really was. He had no more grip on me. I was literally a new person, free from all my own shame that I had carried, all the evil, all his lies. I just wept. And the sky was dark, the clouds were dark, and it just started pouring rain. And I just felt like God was crying with me. In the years after my father was arrested, I got married. It was like the best day of my life. I was accepted, I was free, and I was beautiful. I'll never forget looking in the mirror, seeing myself in my wedding dress, and I was like, "Oh my, I am really pretty." I actually, to receive that was huge for me. I was beautiful, and I was worthy of this. Looking back, I'm really glad that I was brave enough to continue and not give up that fight. I saved my family and myself, and I stopped abuse in our family by being brave. And I would encourage anyone, don't give up in the middle of it, because in the moment it was hard, but it was worth it.
They made me raise my right hand, even though it shook. The oath stuck to my tongue like dust. "Detective Imani Brooks," the clerk announced, as if my name explained anything about the night the city swallowed my husband and filed the teeth marks as paperwork. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and old breath. A fan clicked in the corner like a metronome for dread. Outside, a church choir tested microphones. A tremble of gospel bled through the windows. I heard him there. Danny's left hand on the keys, the way he'd stretch a chord until the air admitted it had a heart. "Tell us what happened," the prosecutor said. I looked past her shoulder to the jury, to the wood-paneled walls where darkness kept its records. I used to think time made sense of loss. It doesn't. It only builds rooms for it. "I thought he died in a robbery," I said. "I thought the case went cold because the city has winters. I thought my badge meant I would recognize the truth when it looked me in the eye." I smiled, without humor. I was wrong. The truth never looked up. The courtroom followed me home. It hid in my coat and clipped to my hair and trailed me into the elevator. That square of metal where Chicago shakes the truth loose from your bones. By the time I reached the 4th floor of South Kedzie Station, the day's light was already bruised. It was late enough for the smokers to switch to gum and for the gum chewers to switch to prayer. "Evening, Detective," Theo Navarro said. He leaned on the high desk outside records with a pencil sticking out of his curls like a little antenna. Theo was 26. Baby mustache, flannel shirt under a department sweater. He moved like a librarian who had learned judo. "You got the box," I said. He shrugged. "You got the smile that hurts to look at. We're even." I didn't smile back. "Open it." He slid the cardboard over like it carried something alive that might bite if startled. "Carter Daniel, homicide, 1995, it said in stamped blue letters. My husband had been reduced to office supplies 3 years ago, and no one sent flowers to the stapler. Imani, Theo murmured. You sure about this? IA gets itchy when people pull dead cases without a form. I signed a form. I opened the lid. It's called a marriage license. He winced, nodded, went quiet. Inside, photographs, a report with a coffee ring like a solar eclipse, a plastic bag containing a flattened bullet that had never made a decision for itself. The chain of custody log was clipped to the inside cover. I traced the boxes with my finger. The last signature, faded and hesitant, belonged to a property clerk who retired 2 winters ago to Arizona, chasing joints that no longer worked and sunsets he could finally afford. I slid the crime scene photos out. Alley, dumpster, a halo of sodium light turning the puddles the color of tea too weak to drink. Danny on his side, left hand curled, suit jacket half spread like a wing that didn't open in time. I sat down without asking, my knees. Theo watched me without staring. That's a trick good men learn when they love someone who's drowning but pretends the water is just the weather. Anything new? He asked. The bullet's jacket is marked property F2297. I held the bag up, but the log says F2291. I tapped the numbers. Not a transposition. 2 and 9 are not neighbors you confuse when you're sober. You're thinking a second bullet, Theo said. I'm thinking the first bullet had a cousin who never met the family. I placed the bag back, gently, as if Danny could feel roughness through plastic. And someone wrote the wrong house number so no one would visit. Theo chewed the inside of his cheek. You want me to pull the F2297 file? You need to ask? He glanced over his shoulder. Records was a cave full of steel shelves, boxes stacked like low skyline. Somewhere, a radio whispered weather. Somewhere else, a copier exhaled like a tired animal. He disappeared down an aisle and returned with a narrow binder and a file that belonged to a different decade. He set them on the table. The binder was labeled Narcotics, Task Force, Keen. I touched the letters the way people touch gravestones, to test if the stone will believe your fingertips. Lieutenant Raymond Keene was a rumor embodied, handsome like a new knife, Irish, with a laugh that made other men want to agree with him so they could keep hearing it. He ran a team that seized more dope than the newspapers could print, then returned to the bar where the cigarettes drew circles in the air like they were adding up his future. Why is my husband's bullet jacket linked to Keene's property room? I asked. Theo's pencil stopped tapping. You tell me, detective. I flipped the binder. Inside, photocopies of property receipts, signatures layered like sedimentary rock, history no one bothered to read. F2297 matched to a narcotic seizure 1 week before Danny died. 2 kilos. A street buy that turned into a sprint. The officer making the drop? A name I didn't expect. Officer D. Carter. I blinked. The room wept light. That's wrong, I said. Theo leaned closer. You sure he didn't? Danny worked patrol and piano. He didn't play cowboy with Keene. He hated those raids. Said they made too many friends in the wrong places. I flipped to the next page. The signature on the receipt looked like Danny's if you squinted and drank. The D had a loop he always made because his music teachers called it a G clef, as if his name had learned to sing. The loop here was crooked, like someone drew a voice without listening to it. My throat felt narrow. I forced it wider. Pull the original property card. Theo slid away again. The gospel from the church next door seeped in with the heat through an old vent. A woman was running a scale, her voice a narrow ladder against a stone wall. In 3 notes, I tasted the Sunday I met Danny. After service, sunshine and crumbs on his shoulders, him teasing the preacher's old piano while Sister Ruth scolded him, secretly pleased. Theo returned with a faded index card, the color of nicotine and old vanilla. F2297. The card had fingerprints in pencil that no one noticed when it mattered. Officer of record, Carter D. Drop time, 0037. Supervisor signature, Lieutenant R. Keene. I heard my pulse in the vent. Midnight drops, I whispered. Danny never... I stopped. The memory pushed its way in. A voicemail, the night he died. I'd been half asleep, radio turned low, his voice cutting through the static, soft and hurried. Hey baby, quick thing, gotta help some guys with a transfer. It's cleaner if I'm there. Don't wait up. I'll bring cinnamon rolls in the morning. 1-7-3-2. Love you. The piano in the background had flirted with a hymn before the beep cut it. 1-7-3-2. Our code. Our city had too many eyes, so we used numbers. 1 to 7 for I love. 3 for one more thing. 2 for tell Aaliyah to sleep. Only the numbers slid in other directions if we needed them. 1 to 7 to 3 to 2 could also mean a locker number, the way he teased me once. If I vanish, Imani, look in the places that never say hello. I pulled my bag closer and wrote the sequence on a sticky note. Property lockers run 4 digits? I asked. Theo nodded. If it's old enough, if it's been forgotten enough. I closed the binder. I want to see 1732. Theo hesitated. That's not a thing we do without a court order. Then we'll do it with a thing called grief. I tried to smile. Failed. I'll owe you 2 cinnamon rolls. He studied my face and decided some debts could still be paid in sugar. Give me 10 minutes, he said. While he disappeared into the maze of steel and paper, I dialed Aaliyah. She answered on the second ring, breathless, late laughter behind her, the echo of a church basement. Leah, I said, you at rehearsal? Yes, ma'am, she sang, always half mocking when she was nervous. Sister Ruth's warming them up. You okay? Define okay, she sobered. You're in the box again. I'm in it, I said, and it's in me. Listen, tell me again. The night Danny died, where were you? Silence. Then, at home, you know that. I don't know anything, I said, too quietly for anger. I used to. Now I collect it in teaspoons and it evaporates. Imani, tell me you didn't see him leave after midnight. Tell me no one from the department called our phone and you didn't pick up because you didn't want to wake me. Her breath changed. The choir above her kept climbing, the chords swelling like weather. Who told you? No one told me, I said. The numbers did. She exhaled. A small whimper jammed into the air. I thought you would. They said it would put your job in the crosshairs. I was protecting. Me? I asked. Us, she said. Us is a word for people who tell the truth when it matters. I saw him leave, she whispered. After midnight. He said he had to fix something that wasn't broken yet. I asked him if it was about Keene's boys because everyone knew they were turning seizures into stories. He kissed my forehead and said, "Pray for the honest mistake. I wanted to wake you. I didn't." I closed my eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was drinking then," she said. "And I thought if I told you, I would drink enough to drown." I could have told her about drowning as a sport sanctioned by this city. I could have told her about forgiveness as a lifeguard with a broken whistle. Instead, I said, "I hear the choir." "Do you?" Her voice tried to smile. "We're working His Eye is on the Sparrow. Sister says God watches even when we don't. Tell Sister Ruth to keep watching," I said, and hung up before the apology could form.
Theo returned, ghost pale with triumph and terror.
He slid a small black cassette across the table. The plastic was cracked at one corner, the label written in thick marker. 1732, NTF, Narcotics Task Force. No case number, no author, just a box that told the truth when no one asked it to. "You didn't get this from me," Theo said. "I got it from a number," I said, because it felt less like a sin. He placed a dented tape player beside it, the kind teachers use to prove the past exists. He pressed play. Static. The old kind that sounds like rain that forgot how to land. Then a radio squawk. "Unit 12, we're clear at 47th, bringing it in. Midnight drop, no chatter." A pause. Footsteps on concrete. Then voices, low and close, as if the tape recorder sat on a chest that wanted to breathe quieter. "You move it and we cut the church in. They don't ask questions. Too many eyes, Ray. We are the eyes." A scuff. A piano chord far away, testing a hymn and refusing it. My skin prickled so hard I could count my pores. Danny's voice wasn't there. Only a whisper I knew was his shape in the silence. Then a sentence that wrapped itself around my bones like a tourniquet. "Blue on blue, Ray. You sure?" "Ray." "Keen." Theo hit stop like he'd killed a bug with a hammer. He swallowed. "Blue on blue means—" "I know what it means," I said. My mouth tasted like pennies. We stared at the little rectangle of plastic like it might grow teeth. Outside, the choir landed on a harmony that would have made Danny grin. That trick he had where grief and joy agreed to share a table. "What now?" Theo asked. I picked up the cassette. It was warm, either from the machine or because the past holds its own temperature. Now we find who signed it in and erased the name. Now we ask the church what it saw without eyes. Now I go home and ask my sister to swear on something heavier than a hymnal. Theo touched the binder with 2 fingers. "You're going to run into Keen." "I plan to run through him," I said. He almost smiled. "You always were bad at polite." "I used to be good at faith," I said. "Look where it got me." I put the cassette in my coat pocket like a found pulse. The night outside tasted like ash and snow, even in summer, the way Chicago seasons lose their paperwork at the back door. As I stepped into the hallway, Sister Ruth's voice carried from the church, talking to her choir between songs. "God's ear is not deaf, but you gotta speak up." "Funny thing," I said to no one, "so does the truth." I walked toward the exit, my husband breathing in my pocket like a second heart that woke up late. On the landing, the stairwell light flickered, caught, and held. For once, it didn't go out. At the bottom of the stairs, a man in a gray suit leaned on the radiator, smoke rising from his hand like he'd lit a match to time. Lieutenant Keen smiled like a camera flash. "Detective Brooks," he said, "we should talk about old music." Keen's smile didn't reach his eyes. The hall's fluorescent hummed, highlighting the small failures in my comm. He flicked ash into a cracked paper cup and watched it fall like snow that chose one person. "Late night at records?" he asked. "Couldn't sleep," I said. "That your secret, Detective Brooks? When the city goes quiet, you listen to what's left?" "I listen for what's missing." He tilted his head. "You've been listening for 3 years. Ears must be tired." I kept my hands in my pockets so he wouldn't see one of them clench around the cassette. "Say what you came to say." Keen stepped off the radiator, smoothing his tie like he was getting ready to lie in church. "Some of us are worried about you. Long looks at old boxes, friends in low places helping you find keys. That sort of thing can injure a career." "Never met a career that bled," I said, "but I've met people who do." He took me in as if measuring fabric. Your husband was a decent man. Decent men make mistakes. They forget what favors look like once the ink dries. I'm saying you should go home, detective. Let the dead settle. You brought a sermon to the wrong service. I brought a warning. He leaned close so his cologne and cigarettes braided. Careful you don't go confusing grief for permission. I looked him in the face and let him see I had none left to borrow. You're right, I said softly. Grief doesn't grant permission. Complicity does. His jaw tightened, a little twitch that betrayed the man behind the uniform. Watch yourself. I am, I said, and stepped past him. He didn't stop me. He didn't have to. His certainty pressed against my back all the way down the stairs, like a hand that wouldn't call itself a hand. Outside, the air was all radiator ghost and alley rain. Gospel threaded the block from the church next door, a scale repeated until it learned how to forgive its own wrong note. I walked the 3 blocks to my car, with my shoulders pretending to be mountains. When I turned the key, the radio chose jazz by accident. Horns wept in an alley as if they'd overheard their future and decided to play it anyway. I killed the station and sat in the quiet, holding the cassette like a talisman whose God didn't answer. 1732. Back at my apartment, I locked the door, slid the chain, then slid a second chain I'd installed the month after Danny. The place had the smell it always did after midnight, a mix of coffee that forgot to be poured and polish on the old upright in the corner. He used to come home and loosen his tie and play 3 chords to see if the room still recognized him. He is the reason the piano and the lamp and the chair still sit in the same peace treaty. Aaliyah was on the couch, bare feet tucked under, a cup of tea she would not drink, cooling into a new element. She stood when she saw me, and then stopped, gauging the weather in my face like Chicago does in February. I told Sister Ruth, she said, as if that were a crime with a plea deal. I told her the thing I never told you. She held my hands and didn't let me talk until I could breathe. Good, I said, because there are some sentences you practice, and some you let build themselves. You saw him leave, after midnight. He said he had to fix something that wasn't broken yet. She nodded, eyes shining at the edges like lights in fog. He kissed my forehead. He looked so gentle tired. Did he say who called him? No, but the phone rang first. I picked it up. They hung up when they heard me breathe. She swallowed. It was a department line, like when you transfer between units. You know the click it makes? That click. I placed the cassette on the coffee table, the way you place something fragile amid cheap wood. I found a tape, I explained in brief. The locker, the number, the whisper of men pretending to be the eyes of the city. I did not say Keene's name yet. Saying names invites them closer. Aaliyah's hand hovered over the cassette, as if it exhaled heat. Do we play it? In the morning, I said, when I'm not drunk on being awake. You don't drink. Everyone drinks something, I said. Tonight, I drank anger. She sank back into the couch. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry you had to, I said. We are a family of women who apologize to each other for the storms we didn't invent. The piano in the corner had dust on the keys that spelled wait if you were of a mind to see words. I lifted the fallboard and pressed one note. The wood answered like an old friend testing a reunion. 1732. Danny loved numbers. On bad weeks, we'd text each other just integers at lunch to say what the heart couldn't bear. 4 for I'm drowning, 8 for hold fast, 11 for root for me. After the funeral, I tried to send them to myself. The phone ate them. The city did not reply. I set the tape next to my badge. Lock the windows, I told Aaliyah, and went to shower off the precinct smell. Under the water, the day came back in strobe. Keen's smile like a knife catalog photo. Theo's pencil turning anxious kilometers. The way the chain of custody card had my husband's name written in someone else's alphabet. When I came out, the apartment was dark. Aaliyah gone to the bed she pretended to sleep in. I stood at the window in my robe and watched the city inhale. Somewhere a siren had smoked too much. Somewhere a train refused to be quiet. I put the cassette in my purse and placed the purse under the piano, a childish instinct. Hide the treasure where you hear lullabies. I slept like someone on a bus who doesn't trust the driver, but has to keep moving. Morning arrived with its drier light. Aaliyah made eggs, burnt at the edges the way Danny liked, as if crispy were a seasoning. We ate standing, a ritual of women who learned that chairs make you too honest. You gonna play it at the precinct? She asked. No. I pulled the tape out. Not yet. Property cameras record to VHS like a bad memory, but I don't like being a shadow on department time, and Keen knows I'm looking. She flinched. He found me on the stairs. I smiled, but it was a toothless animal. He thinks I confuse grief with permission. That man, she said, and we let the sentence die of natural causes. I drove to a corner shop that still sold cassettes to men who drove trucks that still had tape decks. I bought another player, a stack of blank tapes, and 2 cinnamon rolls for Theo, because debts need witnesses. I parked 2 blocks from the station and watched the cars come and go like beached whales that forgot the ocean. Inside, the precinct breathed its usual breath. Coffee that fell on its sword, paper that knew better than truth, jokes in the bullpen with the same 4 letters and different punches. Theo was at his post, pretending a stapler required us both. "You brought carbs," he said, eyes flicking to the bag like a squirrel discovering it believed in God. "For you. The tape is for us." I slipped into the small records listening room, the one with paneled walls and a window that looked at a brick wall an arm's length away. Theo shut the door. I placed the cassette in the new player and hit play. The same static, like rain that put itself back together. The radio squawk. Unit 12, clear at 47th. Midnight drop, no chatter. A metallic thud, as if a lock despised its duty. Footsteps, then the voices. You listen differently the second time. You listen for where the air gets nervous. "Move it and we cut the church in." A different voice, lower, with a scrape, answered, "No church. Their eyes, too." "We are the eyes." And then that phrase again, in a whisper so close to the mic I could smell the smoker. "Blue on blue, Ray. You sure?" Silence. A faint, unsteady inhale. The tape clicked softly like a shy metronome. Somewhere far, a piano rolled a chord and let it die. Theo rewound, pressed play, paused at names that didn't arrive. "Ray." "Keen," I said. He didn't argue. "Who's the scraper voice?" "Bell," I offered, though the man's bass was a little warmer than the deputy superintendent's radio voice, the recordings I'd heard at briefings. The man on the tape sounded like he used to sing but quit for money. Theo tapped the table. "There's a timestamp on the radio squawk. I can cross-check dispatch logs, see who was on at 0035 that night. Do it. He hesitated. If this is real, it's real, I said. Then the chain of custody card is forged. And if that's real, then someone is going to try to erase the tape that proves it. We should duplicate it. I pulled the blank tapes out of the bag, the way a magician pulls scarves from a hole in the air. Already there. We set the second deck looping a copy. Theo might have been a choir boy once. He handled the equipment like hymnals. While the deck spun, I took the narcotics binder back out. Paper has a smell that means time. I thumbed through property slips until I found the week around Danny's death. The F2297 receipt listed a seizure from a church basement outreach. No address printed, just W51st near Church Hall. Seized from unknown, drop. Officer of record, Carter D. Supervisor, Lieutenant R. Keene. There was a second slip glued behind it, almost invisible, as if someone assumed no one would peel paper apart in a world where everyone scrolls. That second slip mentioned a cross-reference. Homicide intake, field tape, locker 1732. The handwriting was neat, thin, female. I ran my finger along it. The initial at the corner, R.E. R.E., I said aloud. Theo looked up. What? Initials on a cross-reference, R.E. He snapped his fingers softly. Records clerk before me, Ruth Ellison, retired from this front desk and went down the block to the church. She's Pastor Ruth now. I blinked. Pastor Ruth. The same voice that had told me forgiveness must be aimed, not thrown. The woman who once checked out my late library books of grief. She signed this with her initials when she was a clerk, I said, which means she touched the tape when it first arrived. And then she left for God, Theo said, without malice, because you learn not to sneer at exits when you work in paper. What if she saw something that made her choose a different employer? Theo watched me like you watch match heads. You going to ask her? I'm going to ask her to remember. We let the duplicates finish. I slipped the copies into separate envelopes, one for me, one for a lawyer I sometimes trusted, one for a safe deposit box I hadn't used since the wedding. We labeled the original with a number we would remember if someone tried to make it forget us. Before we could leave, the listening room light flickered. Theo frowned at the ceiling. Then my pager vibrated against the desk, a rude electric prayer. An unknown number. I recognized the stubborn pattern. Internal line, bounced and disguised. I stepped into the hallway. Brooks? A voice I hadn't heard in a year. Deputy Superintendent Warren Bell, smooth as old whiskey. Detective. Word is you're making a quilt out of scraps you found in the bins. Quilts keep people warm, but they also smother. I prefer blankets that tell the truth, I said. He chuckled. You always did like metaphors. Listen to me, because I'm giving you a gift. There's a thing in everyone's life that if you poke it, you bleed from places you thought were stone. Don't poke this. I thought you believed in courage. I believe in families, he said, and the word felt like a threat. Read your sister's file before you read mine. The line went dead. I stared at the receiver like it might confess. Families. Aaliyah had a short string of misdemeanors from her bad years, a long string of meetings with coffee and folding chairs. Nothing Bell could twist into a chain. Unless I returned to Theo with a face that made him sit up. They're calling. They're listening, too, he said. We should move. We split the tapes. I palmed the envelope into my coat. the original into the inside pocket that had a tiny rip I'd sewn with dental floss the month Danny died. Old grief has practical skills. The church smelled like lemon oil, dust, and late morning light. Pastor Ruth was organizing hymnals, her back a geometry of patience. When she saw me, her eyes softened, the way wood does when you oil it after a dry winter. "Detective," she said, gentle smile. "You look like you brought thunderstorms in a paper bag." I brought a question. I held up the binder with her initials. "Did you initial a cross-reference for a homicide tape, Lockers 1732, 3 years ago?" She took the binder from me like scripture and turned it. "I initialed many things," she said, "but I don't sign my name to forgetting." "You were records then." "I was a clerk then," she corrected. "I became a pastor because I wanted to keep better track of souls. Do you remember the night of a midnight drop? Narcotics task force. The officers used the church basement outreach to move something. You wrote a cross-reference. You saw a tape. She regarded me the way good people regard pain. Respectful, unafraid. There was a young man who died that week, a husband, a pianist. I remember because his sister sang in the choir the Sunday after, and she couldn't finish the verse. I kept the rest of the song in my pocket for months. My throat closed around air. "That was my husband," I said. "Danny." "I know," she said simply. "I also know men with badges who think a locked door is the last word. Do you remember who handed you the tape?" She was quiet long enough for a ray of winter sun to consider me and move on. "A sergeant with tobacco on his cups. He had the look of a man who hides cash in his lawnmower. He was nervous. He told me the tape belonged in property, but he wanted homicide to hear it first. He didn't trust his own. He asked me to cross-reference it in case it went missing. His name? Rinker," she said, the name falling like a penny in a jar. Mel Rinker. Theo and I exchanged the look of people who realized their breadcrumbs were bread. "Where can I find him?" I asked. She sighed. "He sits on a stool at Mary's on Kedzie most afternoons, watching the Cubs lose and pretending it hurts less if he drinks early. He favors mornings when he's hiding from nights. If you catch him before noon, he tells the truth before the lies stretch." I closed my eyes as if sleep could answer. "Thank you." She placed her hand on my sleeve and left it there just long enough for it to be a benediction. "Detective Brooks," she said softly, "forgiveness is aim. Justice is weight. Don't lift one without knowing why." I thought I was strong enough to carry both. "You are," she said, "if you stop trying to carry alone." Outside, the day had sobered. Theo walked a step behind me, hands in pockets, as if his loyalty were a cloak he was still learning the shape of. "Mary's?" he asked. "Mary's," I agreed. We found Rinker hunched over a beer that wasn't old enough to be tragic. The bar smelled like mop water and American hope. Baseball flickered on a mounted TV. The sound turned down so the crowd's disappointment lived only in images. Rinker had a face like a shoe that walked through every season. He looked up when I slid onto the neighboring stool. "No reporters," he said. "Good thing I'm a cop," I said. "Once and future." "Detective Brooks," he squinted. "Carter's widow." "Wife," I said. "Widow is something the city made up to explain its appetite." He chuckled, coughed, wiped his mouth with a knuckle. "What do you want?" "Your memory." I placed a napkin on the bar and drew the numbers 1 to 7 to 3 to 2 with the dull end of a pen. "You handed a tape to records the night of a midnight drop. You asked for a cross-reference. You didn't trust the men you worked for." He stared at the napkin like it had asked him to confess to the weather. "Who told you?" "Pastor Ruth. The choir remembers what the department buries." He drank. He set the glass down carefully. A man who had knocked too many things over by accident and learned the elegance of precision. "What's the price of remembering?" "Forgetting," Kills more people than remembering, I said. Start with that discount. He smiled at the beer. Keene was king that year. You know the type. Smiles with all his teeth, so people will lend him the ones missing. He ran the task force like a joint bank account. The city paid in cash. The streets paid in quiet. And you? I stamped forms and told myself I was a cog that couldn't control the clock. He sighed. We made a drop that night. 2 kilos. Church basement outreach because it's a place where people come to give and take without asking receipts. A blue-on-blue almost happened because some rookie wanted to do the right thing. Danny, I said. He wasn't on our team. He walked in because someone told him the drop looked wrong. He had a pocket recorder he used for rehearsals, I think, to catch song ideas. He put it on the table like a man putting a bird back into the sky. Rinker swallowed. He made a tape of a conversation that could ruin men. He told me if something happened to him, that tape needed to have children. So I took it to records and asked them to make a cross-reference because I watched enough magic shows to know you keep a spare coin. Who killed him? I asked, softly enough that my voice survived. Rinker stared at his beer. A gun that belonged to no one. A hand that belonged to everyone. That doesn't spend, I said. He looked at me finally, eyes chapped with sleep he never respected. You want a name? So do I. I can give you a pair. Keene, and the man who taught him how to ask forgiveness from money. Bell. Theo made a sound. A small syllable that kept its coat on. You have proof? The tape you have, Rinker said. And the empty space where the police report should be listing second bullet recovered. The one we never logged because the church floor ate it. I was supposed to mark the property slip F2291. Somebody switched it to F2297 to tie the wrong jacket to the right file. He smirked at his hands. We used to joke that property numbers were like saints. Call the wrong one and you get a different miracle. I felt the old anger humming like a refrigerator that couldn't be fixed. Why are you telling me now? Because morning, he said. And the word was a confession. And because I didn't think you'd get this far. And because the deputy called me last night and told me if I said Mary's to anyone, I'd find my car teaching me to fly. I always did like to prove management wrong. You're a brave man, I said. No, he replied. I'm a tired one. I slid a copy of the tape across the bar, wrapped in a napkin like a calzone. Hide this. If I disappear, take it to the Tribune. Ask for Cora Lee. She hates the department more than it hates her. He handled the napkin like a sacrament. You're going to put it in the system? I'm going to put it where truth has to sit up straight, I said. And I'm going to put my name on it so they know where to address the threats. Rinker laughed without joy. You always were better at faith than fear. He walked us to the door. The light outside had sharpened to noon, cutting the block into pieces that didn't fit yet. As Theo and I stepped onto the sidewalk, a car at the corner idled a beat too long. The driver's window was down just enough to frame a cigarette, ash growing like a fragile city. I memorized the license plate like a hymn. K731DZ. The car turned and slid away. Theo exhaled. They're not subtle. They don't have to be. I checked my watch. We're going to internal affairs. You trust IA? No. I tucked my hair behind my ear and let the wind show me where it hit its counts. But I trust process to at least trip the guilt once on its way to brunch. We didn't make it to the car. A hiss like a snake that studied mechanics, then a soft pop. The front tire of my sedan sagged into a poor decision. I crouched. A fresh slit looked back like a mouth that promised more. On my windshield, under the wiper, a business card. No name, just a printed sentence. Sing quietly, or we change the key. I laughed because my options were to laugh or scream. Theo bent to read, straightened, cheeks pale. We can call a ride. We can walk, I said. It's 4 blocks. Let them watch me carry my dead man through daylight. We made it 3 blocks. At the crosswalk, the don't walk hand flashed, the kind that always looks like it's swearing at you. We waited. A man in a gray suit stepped out of a doorway we weren't noticing. Keen. He didn't smile this time. He lifted his hands, palms empty, as if demonstrating innocence, as if innocence were a trick you performed on a street corner for coins. "Detective Brooks," he said, "there's a way to end this where we both keep our houses. I considered my apartment, with its piano and its chains. I want the house you burned down." "Careful," he said. "You could ruin nice things." "I already did," I said. "I married a man for love in this city." He sighed. "You're going to take a tape to IA and pretend it will become justice. I'm here to tell you it will become ash, or it will become money, or it will become a radio silence that sounds like jazz." He shrugged. "But if you hand it to me, if you help me put it back where it can't hurt anyone, you get to keep your badge, your sister's quiet, and the choir gets to finish their song." "What about your hands?" I asked. "My hands will still be handsome," he said. "That's their trick." The walk sign turned white. People moved around us with the determination of pigeons. I stepped off the curb. "No." He stood still, a statue waiting for its pigeons. "No, no," I repeated, and it felt like a vow that had finally learned its vowels. "I'm going to aim forgiveness. I'm going to weigh justice. And I'm going to put your name where people can see it in daylight." Keen studied me for a long second, the way a man studies a safe he wants to learn the combination of. Then he smiled. "Then I guess I'll see you in court," he said mildly, like a man agreeing to brunch. "If you make it that far." He turned away so slowly it was almost a courtesy. I watched him go, and for the first time since the night Danny left, I felt my spine become a bridge. Back at the precinct, I found the listening room door ajar and the tape decks still warm, but the original cassette was gone, and on the table, in its place, lay my badge, neatly folded in a plastic bag, labeled in someone else's handwriting, Exhibit A. The city had the habit of holding its breath right before it rained. That morning, I felt Chicago doing it again. A long, deep inhale that made the windows hum, the air slick with electricity. Inside the precinct, the hum was human. Voices low, printers stuttering, someone somewhere laughing too loud at the wrong time. The kind of laughter that knows it's being overheard. I walked past them, with the tape's absence burning a hole in my pocket. The plastic bag, with my badge, Exhibit A, still sat on the listening room table, its quiet accusation spreading like spilled ink. Whoever took the cassette had left a message too polite to be random. They wanted me to see what I looked like, stripped of authority. Theo hovered near the doorway, pale and taut. "I locked it, swear to God." "I believe you," I said, though belief had been a bad investment lately. "They had a key card," he whispered, "or command access." Keen. He didn't disagree. What now? I looked at the empty reel spinning on the deck, the tiny silver hub turning without purpose, a perfect portrait of faith. "Now," I said, "we see who else the city pays to sing in tune." Aaliyah's voice cracked before I reached the apartment door. Through the thin walls, gospel bled like smoke. The choir rehearsing upstairs. "His eye is on the sparrow," the song she could never finish. When I entered, she was at the piano, not playing, just touching the keys as if they were graves. A bottle of non-alcoholic wine sat open beside a half-drunk glass. The radio hummed low with static. "You look like someone buried a miracle in your pocket," she said without turning. "They took the tape." She stopped touching the keys. "Who? Who do you think?" I set the envelope of duplicate copies on the table. "But I made children, like he told me." She turned. The soft defiance in her eyes made her look too much like him. "They'll find those, too. They'll try." I leaned against the wall. "Belle called me. Mentioned you." Her jaw trembled. What did he say? That I should read your file before I read his. A silence that tasted of metal settled between us. There's nothing in it, she said quickly. Not anymore. You're sure? She hesitated. Too long. It was sealed. Community service. Expunged. What was it? She looked down at her hands, the same hands that clutched hymnals and promises. Possession. Small. Stupid. Keen's team raided the basement where I was volunteering. Thought I was part of a drop. I was clean that week. The dope wasn't mine. My pulse hitched. What basement? She looked up, eyes wet but defiant. The church one. W51st. I sat on the edge of the couch, feeling the room tilt. So you were there, I said. I was there before it went bad. I helped stock food. Pastor Ruth thought I was helping with outreach. Then those cops stormed in like they'd found the devil's address. Keen's task force. She nodded, shame turning her voice into something small. They said they found kilos in a crate by the piano, the same one Danny used to play after service. I stared at her, then at the dusty instrument by the window. You never told me. You were grieving, Imani. I thought if I told you, you'd think Danny got caught up in it, and I couldn't survive you hating him. Her words landed like stones, skipping across my ribs. You lied to protect me. I lied to stay your sister, she said simply. I stood, pacing. They used your record to scare Belle's call into meaning something. They'll paint you as the reason Danny walked into that basement. Aaliyah shook her head. I didn't call him. I swear it. I believe you. I didn't. Not completely. Not yet. The choir upstairs reached a high note and failed it, voices scattering into dissonance. Aaliyah flinched. You think he's watching us? She asked softly. You think Danny sees what's left? I stared at the ceiling. If he is, I hope he's looking away. That night I sat at the piano. The dust rose in small flares under my fingertips. I pressed the same 3 chords Danny always started with. They sounded like a memory deciding whether to stay. My phone buzzed. Theo. Theo. IA wants you in. 9 a.m. They said cooperation is grace. Me. Grace doesn't work by appointment. I didn't sleep. Instead, I played back every lie the city had told me until it sounded like jazz. Messy, improvisational, full of clever pauses. Around 4 a.m., I took the badge bag and pinned it to the corkboard above the piano. A reminder. I no longer worked for them. I worked against their forgetting. Morning came in gray ribbons. At Internal Affairs, the conference room smelled of reheated honesty. 3 men sat waiting. Belle was not among them, just a young female sergeant with sharp eyes and a recorder on the table. Detective Brooks, she began. We've received reports of unauthorized evidence handling. I'm sure you have. You accessed a sealed locker. I opened my husband's coffin. Excuse me? I leaned forward. That's what a case file becomes after 3 years. A coffin you visit with gloves. The sergeant shifted, her professionalism cracking. You understand the gravity of, I understand corruption wears cologne, I said, and sometimes it answers to Lieutenant Keen. Her hand froze above the recorder. This isn't about Keen. It's always about Keen. Theo, sitting at the back like a shadow that paid rent, handed me a folder. We duplicated the chain of custody card. The copy shows edits, digital and ink. He opened it. The signatures didn't match. The date stamps glitched under UV light. The sergeant studied them, face unreadable. I'll need to verify. You won't get the chance, said a voice at the door. Keen. In uniform this time, starched and righteous, flanked by 2 officers I didn't know. This meeting's over, he said. Detective Brooks is on leave pending review. Review of what? I asked. Tampering, he said. End interference. The sergeant looked between us, caught in a jurisdictional no man's land. Sir, Keen's smile silenced her. He dropped a folder on the table, paper spilling like confession slips. This is a statement from records tech Theodore Navarro, admitting to unauthorized copying of evidence. Theo's face drained. I didn't. Keen raised a hand. We'll hear it in your own words later. For now, you're both relieved. He turned to me. You wanted truth. There it is. It doesn't look as pretty as justice, does it? The next thing I remember clearly is the precinct door slamming behind us. Rain had finally come. Cold, sharp, fast. Theo stood beside me under the awning, face pale. "I didn't sign anything," he said. "They forged it. I know. They're gonna fire me." "Maybe," I said. "Or they'll bury you in some evidence vault until you forget why air matters." He looked at me, eyes wet but not from rain. "Why are we still standing?" "Because sitting would look like surrender. For the first time since Danny's death, I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw open the sky and make it listen. Instead, I leaned against the brick wall, head back, rain soaking the edges of my collar. "I used to believe in justice," I whispered. "Now I just believe in momentum." Theo didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, I went back to the church. Ruth was lighting candles, her fingers steady. The wax caught the light like forgiveness learning to stand again. "You look tired, Detective." "I'm losing people," I said. "And truth. Sometimes that's how God makes room." "For what?" "For the right kind of anger." I sat in the front pew. "They took the tape. They framed Theo. They want me to break before I speak." She studied the flame. "You can't outshout sin. You can only outlast it. I don't have time for sermons." "Then listen like a sinner," she said. "The truth will come for you whether you want it or not. Make sure you're ready to meet it." I wanted to ask her what forgiveness looks like when justice hides behind badges, but I didn't. I just watched the candle burn lower. Near midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered out of habit. "Detective Brooks," a man's voice said. Low, urgent. "Don't hang up." "Who is this?" "Mel Rinker." I sat up. "You shouldn't be calling me." "I don't have much time," he said. "I told you names, right? Keene, Bell. I left out one." "Who?" Static flared. A breath. Then, "Your husband." A crash, like glass breaking, cut the line. Then nothing. I called back. No answer. The rain outside turned heavier, as if the sky had overheard something it didn't want to repeat. I stood by the window, phone pressed against my chest, the city lights bleeding through the storm. Danny's face floated behind the glass. Memory or reflection, I couldn't tell. "Tell me what I'm supposed to forgive," I whispered. Outside, thunder answered, not in words, but in rhythm. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion, two things that always outlive mercy. Aaliyah slept under the hum of the IV machine, her chest rising with the rhythm of someone who had nearly been taken but wasn't ready to leave. Theo sat slumped in a chair, head bowed, his coat still wet from the rain. And in my hands, the envelope, unmarked, thin. Inside, the cassette. A single word written on the label in Danny's handwriting. Endgame. It felt warm, though it had no right to be. Like the tape had been hiding in someone's chest, beating along to the rhythm of guilt. I turned it over twice before Theo noticed. "Another one?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Yeah," I said softly. "The last one." He stood, rubbing his eyes. "Could be a trick." "Could be a goodbye," I said. "Same thing sometimes." We found a player at the nurse's station, one of those old cassette decks used for patient dictations. The nurse didn't ask questions. Maybe she'd seen the look before, the one that said, "If I don't hear this, I stop existing." We took it to the quiet lounge down the hall. The TV was muted, looping late-night reruns of trials from another century. I sat. Theo closed the blinds. The tape clicked in. Static breathed, soft at first, a storm remembering itself. Then Danny's voice. "If you're hearing this, it means the city finally woke up, or it went deaf trying. Imani, baby, I hope it's you. If it's someone else, you better spell her name right in the report." His voice hit me like an old photograph. Imperfect, sun-faded, alive in all the wrong ways. The night I left, it wasn't a call from Keene. It was Bell. He told me he had proof the task force was selling seizures out the back door through church outreach programs. He said he needed someone who wasn't dirty to go inside and make a recording. I said no. Then I thought about the piano in that basement, how it never stopped playing, even when the city went quiet. I said yes. Theo and I exchanged a glance. If this reaches you, it means Bell didn't pull me out. He promised backup. Instead, Keene showed up first. He wasn't surprised to see me. He was surprised to see a mic clipped to my shirt. A small pause, like a man deciding whether to breathe or confess. He offered me a deal. Said I could walk away if I handed over the tape. Said Imani deserved a man, not a martyr. I almost believed him. But then I thought about the nights you'd come home from shift and stare at the mirror like it owed you a different reflection. I couldn't let him keep the lie. I hit record, and then the room went black. Static surged again, the hiss of footsteps, something heavy falling. A muffled gunshot. Theo stiffened. That's the same echo as the church recording. If you're hearing this, Danny's voice returned, shaky now, then I didn't make it. They'll call it friendly fire. They'll call it procedural error. They'll say I shouldn't have been there. They'll say everything except the truth. But the bullet that hit me wasn't stray. It came from behind. He coughed, wet, ragged, and I felt my fingers go numb. Tell them I forgive them, he whispered. Not because they deserve it, but because I don't want to carry their weight into heaven. And tell Aaliyah, sing louder, even when they tell you not to. Especially then. I love you, Imani. Don't bury the song. The tape clicked off. The tape clicked off. The silence afterward was louder than the city. Theo wiped his face with his sleeve. Behind, he repeated. That means Bell, I said. He hesitated. Could it have been Keene? Keene was in front, I said. Bell called him off. He orchestrated the cleanup. He said he protected what was left. He meant himself. Theo shook his head slowly. You're going to confront him. I'm going to end this, I said. He caught my arm. He's powerful, Imani. He'll be waiting. Then he'll have company. Bell's office was still lit when we got there. 3 a.m. A city asleep in its guilt. I left Theo in the car. He didn't argue this time. Inside, the lobby guard nodded, too tired to care about the hour. I moved through the hallways like I still belonged there, muscle memory guided by anger. Bell's door was ajar. He was at his desk, tie loose, a glass of whiskey untouched beside a file. The news from the Tribune sat in front of him, folded once, the headline screaming like a confession he didn't write. Detective Brooks, he said without looking up. You should have waited until morning. Morning's when they bury things, I said. I prefer night. He exhaled. I suppose you listened to the tape. I suppose you already knew what was on it. He looked up finally, eyes bloodshot, but not from alcohol. Yes. So you killed him. I didn't pull the trigger. Then who did? He hesitated. A man who thought he was saving me. Keene. He nodded slowly. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. I thought, if I staged the scene as a robbery, if I handled the evidence, I could clean it before the city found out what we'd become. I laughed, sharp and small. You became a murderer with paperwork. I became what the city pays for, he said, voice breaking. We all did. I took out the tape. You buried him with lies. I'm burying you with truth. You'll burn with me, he warned. That tape has your name all over the chain. You broke procedure. You stole evidence. You defied a direct order. You think they'll make you a hero? They'll make you the widow who killed her husband twice. Maybe, I said, stepping closer. But I'll walk into the fire with my eyes open. He stood. I can still protect you. No, I said. You can't even protect yourself. I reached for the recorder in my coat pocket, pressed play. Danny's voice filled the room again, low, ghostly, deliberate. The bullet that hit me wasn't stray. It came from behind. Bell's expression didn't change, just sagged, like the truth had been sitting on his shoulders for years and finally decided to sit in him. He looked at me, eyes glassy. You don't understand, he said. If I fall, half the department goes down with me. The city won't survive it. Maybe it shouldn't. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he opened a drawer. For a second, I thought he was reaching for a gun. He wasn't. He pulled out his badge, placed it on the desk beside the glass of whiskey, and whispered, "Then it's your city now." He turned toward the window. I didn't stop him. He didn't jump. He just stared at the skyline, the river of lights cutting through the dark. You know what Chicago is? He asked. A wound that learned to call itself a mirror. Then maybe it's time someone stopped admiring it, I said. When I left, I didn't look back. At dawn, I walked along the river. The tape in my pocket felt heavier than before, like it had absorbed the weight of his confession. Theo met me at the bridge. Well, he asked. He admitted it. And now? Now I give this city a choice, I said. To forgive or to remember? He nodded, eyes tired. Which do you want? I want both, I said, but I'll settle for truth. The first sunlight cut through the mist, gold and cold, like a crown no one wanted to wear. Somewhere behind us, sirens wailed again. A city still trying to tell the difference between rescue and regret. As the sun broke the skyline, my pager buzzed. An old department code I hadn't seen in years. Unit 47, Internal Affairs. Message. Meeting requested. Topic, Carter case. Bring endgame. The sender ID, Lieutenant Raymond Keene. The pager code pulsed in the gray dawn like a heartbeat that refused to die. Unit 47, Internal Affairs. Topic, Carter case. Bring endgame. Signed, Lieutenant Raymond Keene. The name alone felt like a siren. Theo saw it first. It's bait, I know. You're going anyway. I am. He looked at me, jaw tight. Then at least let me come. I shook my head. You've already bled enough for someone else's truth. This one's mine. The old IA wing was half condemned. Flickering lights, tile floors the color of cold milk. The kind of building Chicago forgot to tear down because it liked having somewhere to hide its ghosts. The elevator had been gutted. I took the stairs. 3rd floor, room 314. The same number from Danny's first badge assignment. He always joked it was Pi with handcuffs. The door was open. Keene sat inside, alone, unarmed, as calm as a man waiting for his last drink. The blinds were drawn, slicing his face into pieces of light. Detective Brooks, he said, voice steady, almost gentle. I didn't think you'd come without backup. I stopped believing in backup when they buried my husband. He smiled faintly. You always did like the dramatic line. I learned from the best, I said. You trained half the city's liars. He gestured to the chair opposite him. Sit. Or shoot. Either way, let's get this over with. I stayed standing. You asked me to bring the tape. I did. Why? He sighed. Because I know what's on it, and I need you to understand what it means. He leaned back. You think I killed him. I don't think, I said. I know. Then why am I still breathing? Because you're too proud to let someone else write your ending. He laughed once. Maybe. But Danny's death wasn't what you think. He wasn't supposed to die at all. He was supposed to disappear. I frowned. What? Bell wanted to fake his death, Keene said, tone flat, as if reciting someone else's script. Said it would protect him while he testified against me and the task force. Danny agreed. We staged the raid. I was meant to fire blanks. Bell's unit would recover the body, switch him to witness protection, and burn the paperwork. I stared. You expect me to believe that? You don't have to, he said. Believe the tape. He pointed to an old player on the table. Play it. I hesitated, then slid the cassette in, the one labeled Endgame, and pressed play. Static. Then Danny's voice, softer this time. Not the dying confession, but something older.
This is rehearsal number 2, test for audio range. Bell says we do it at the church. Keene fires blanks. I hit the deck. They pull the lights. If something goes wrong... The recording clicked off. I felt my throat tighten. That's before the night. Bell told me it was a dry run, Keene said. But when I pulled the trigger, the blanks weren't blanks. I fired what I was told were dummies, he snapped. I didn't know Bell had swapped them. I watched him fall, and I thought it was the act, until he bled. I didn't believe it until I saw your face on the crime scene report. He rubbed his eyes. For the first time, the great Lieutenant Keene looked old. Bell set both of us up, he said. He wanted Danny dead and a scapegoat. He thought killing a whistleblower and a dirty cop in one move was tidy. He underestimated how much dirt this city grows. I let silence sit between us like a mediator. Why tell me now? I asked. Because the Tribune made me a villain, he said, and Bell died last night. What? He nodded. Gunshot. Office. They're calling it suicide. No witnesses, no note. Convenient, right? Who pulled the trigger? He looked up. You really think it matters? It does to me. He shrugged. Maybe the city finally did one good thing on its own. The rain started again, a soft ticking against the blinds. Where's your proof? I asked. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, copies of ballistics reports, grainy photographs, and a printout of Bell's confidential directive. Unsigned, but unmistakably his phrasing. Operation Furnace. Asset Carter to be neutralized under live fire conditions. My breath hitched. The handwriting at the bottom margin. Danny's in pencil. If this is what justice looks like, maybe I've been playing the wrong song. Keene stood, straightened his jacket. You have 2 choices, detective. Expose this. Make the city eat its saints and watch everything collapse. Or bury it with me and keep your husband's memory clean. My husband's memory doesn't need to be clean, I said. It needs to be true. He nodded slowly, almost respectfully. Then do it. But you'll ruin us all. Maybe we were already ruined. I took the folder. He didn't stop me. As I turned to leave, he said softly, For what it's worth, he was the best of us. I paused at the door. No, I said. He was better. By afternoon, the courthouse steps were lined with reporters. The Tribune had run a follow-up. My face. Danny's photo. The leaked file. A statement from me, short, plain, without poetry. Truth has a body count, but silence buries more. The department suspended me indefinitely. Internal Affairs opened an investigation it didn't mean to finish. But the story had legs now. It was moving without me. Theo met me by the river that night. Same bridge, same fog. You did it, he said. I did what I had to. They'll crucify you. Then maybe we finally have something sacred. He handed me my old badge. Not the bagged evidence, but a clean copy. They told me to give this back when you're ready. I looked at it,
turned it in my hand, felt the metal warm to my skin. "I'm not," I said, and dropped it into the river. It sank without protest. Theo smiled sadly. "What now?" "I go home. I make sure my sister can sing again." At the hospital, Aaliyah was sitting up, oxygen tubes gone, her voice humming something light. Pastor Ruth sat beside her, sewing a torn hymn book like it was silk. I sat down. "They're calling Danny a hero now." Ruth smiled faintly. "Heroes are just sinners who get better press." "Maybe," I said, "but I'll take it." Aaliyah looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. "Is it over?" I took her hand. "No," I said, "but it's beginning again." That night, alone in my apartment, I lit the old lamp by the piano. The air smelled of rain and wood smoke. I pressed a key, middle C, and let it ring. From somewhere deep in the strings, a faint rattle answered back. I opened the lid. Inside, taped to the wood beneath the strings, another scrap of paper in Danny's handwriting. 4 words only. "Truth lives in echoes." And outside, through the cracked window, I could hear it. The church choir practicing again. Voices rising, defiant, unafraid. 3 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom that smelled of cold wood and stale apologies. The same judge who'd presided over the first hearing, the one where I'd raised my right hand and sworn to tell the truth, now stared down at me as though time had looped. But this time, I wasn't the one on trial. The city was. Keene had turned himself in after Belle's death. Maybe guilt, maybe self-preservation, maybe both. The tape-labeled Endgame had become the cornerstone of a federal case. Reporters called it the Sparrow Files, after the gospel song that played faintly in the background of every recording Danny had made. They said it gave the case soul, but I knew better. It gave it a wound that refused to heal quietly. Theo sat behind me, a clean suit and a haunted look. Aaliyah was there too, her face still soft from recovery, but her eyes steady. She'd joined the choir again. Their next concert was in 2 days, dedicated to Danny. Ruth sent a letter to the court, a single verse written in looping penmanship. "Truth is mercy with good timing." When the clerk called my name, I walked to the stand like a woman learning how to breathe for the first time. "Detective Brooks," the prosecutor began, "you've stated that you were in possession of multiple audio recordings created by your husband, Officer Daniel Carter. Do you believe those recordings accurately represent the actions of Lieutenant Raymond Keene and Deputy Superintendent Warren Bell?" "Yes," I said, "but they represent more than that." The prosecutor tilted her head. "More?" "They represent what happens when justice forgets it has a heart." A low murmur rippled through the gallery. The judge rapped his gavel. "Stick to the facts, detective." I nodded. "The facts are simple. My husband went undercover to expose corruption. He was betrayed by the men who swore to protect him. One pulled the trigger, the other wrote the report. For 3 years, I called it a robbery. For 3 years, I slept beside a ghost and called it faith." The prosecutor's voice softened. "And what do you call it now?" I looked out at the jury, a dozen faces trying to decide whether truth was worth its price. "I call it forgiveness," I said. "Not for them, for me. Because hate is a kind of badge, and I've worn it long enough." When the verdict came down, the city held its breath again. Keene, guilty of obstruction, conspiracy, manslaughter. Bell, posthumous conviction, symbolic, but still entered into record. The courtroom exhaled like a choir that had finally hit the right note. Theo squeezed my shoulder. Aaliyah sobbed softly into her hands. And me? I just sat there, hands folded, waiting for the ache to turn into silence. It didn't, but it eased. The next morning I went back to the river where I'd dropped my badge. The water was high, swollen from spring thaw, carrying the debris of a city trying to wash itself clean. I threw a stone in. It vanished without echo. In my coat pocket, I still carried the final scrap of paper from Danny's piano. Truth lives in echoes. He'd been right. The city didn't forget. It just needed the right sound to remember. A faint wind rose from the south, warm, smelling of iron and church candles. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe without guilt. Behind me, footsteps. Aaliyah, "You ready?" she asked. "For what?" "For the concert. They're rehearsing now. Ruth wants you to read the dedication." I smiled. He'd like that. The church was full by sunset. Choir robes rustled like wings. The air shimmered with candlelight. I stood at the pulpit where once I'd bled into confession and loss. 3 years ago, I began, this church held a funeral for a man the city called a victim. Tonight, we call him what he really was, a voice. He didn't die for justice. He died because he refused to stop believing it could exist. I paused. This song is his testimony. Aaliyah nodded to the pianist. The first chord bloomed. His eye is on the sparrow. The same hymn, but different this time. No fear, no whisper. Every voice rose with defiance and peace braided together. I closed my eyes and heard him. Danny, playing under their voices, his fingers rolling through the keys, laughing between notes. When the song ended, no one clapped. They just stood in silence, the kind that doesn't demand noise to mean something. After the service, Ruth handed me an envelope, the kind she used for tithes. Inside was a letter, dated the week after Danny's death. Imani, if this ever reaches you, it means I didn't make it home. But I need you to remember something. Justice isn't a verdict, it's a rhythm. Keep playing. Love, D. The handwriting wavered in places, as if he'd written it in the dark. I folded it carefully and slipped it into my coat. The streets outside glistened with late rain. Gospel notes drifted through open windows, mingling with sirens, laughter, and the hum of buses. Chicago, alive and imperfect. Theo walked me to the corner. "You ever going back?" he asked. "To the force," he nodded. "No," I said, "but I'll keep watching. Someone has to." He smiled. "You'd make a hell of a preacher. Too many sins," I said. "That's what makes the sermons good." At home, I sat at Danny's piano. The dust had settled again, but this time, I didn't wipe it away. I let it stay. Proof that time still lived here. I pressed one key, then another. A melody formed, something between a hymn and a confession. I didn't write it down. Some truths are meant to fade into air. Through the open window, the city joined in. The echo of tires on wet streets, the whisper of voices, the low hum of forgiveness. And as the dawn bled into the glass, I finally understood what he meant. Truth doesn't win. It endures. I turned off the lamp, left the piano open, and whispered into the quiet room. "Sleep well, Danny. The city's finally listening."